The message of this video is going to be very, very simple. So listen closely. I know this is going to sound like meathead advice, but I truly feel called, given the experience and level of expertise that I have in this particular area that I've cultivated over 10 years, that I really feel the need to bring this to my Catholic brethren. It's really, really simple. I'm going to call out two demographics of Catholic guys, okay? Starting with the very well-read and pious Catholic men out there, guys that are super studied on the faith, that practice it very well. You know, this demographic of guys know a lot about theology and apologetics. They're quite often, traditional Catholics, take their faith very seriously, and a demographic in which I could learn a lot from, and I'm, continually striving to learn a lot from. My challenge to you, because I see these guys kind of fit in one of two categories. Either one, they're the kind of super skinny, physically kind of feeble or weak type of guys. That's no insult, of course, or the overweight guys that are very well studied, but may have issues with gluttony. And I've been there. I used to be over 300 pounds. I lost over 125 pounds in like 14 months, many, many, many years ago, and that really set the trajectory for the rest of my life. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if it wasn't for that change. So my challenge to you guys is very simple, okay? I want you to lift weights 2 to 3 times per week. If your schedule doesn't allow a 3-day gym routine, then go 2 days. If it's 2 days, it's going to be 2 full body movements. Don't overthink it. You can either work with a coach. Obviously, this is what I do, so you could reach out to me, but there's no pressure to do that. Work with anybody, or just find a simple plan online that gets you doing 4 movements per workout in a progressive overload fashion, where you're hitting squats, bench presses, deadlifts, etc., twice per week. And if it's a 3-day plan, it's going to be an upper lower full body split. Again, don't overthink the type of programming. The point is you want to start building momentum and going in and lifting some weights and building some physical strength, building some physical fortitude. The other thing I want you to do is aim to get 0.4 to 0.6, or sorry, 0.6 to 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So it's pretty simple. If you are 200-pound individual, that'll be anywhere from like 140 to 160 grams per day. Not a lot. Now, if this seems like a lot, even if you get a little over 100, that's going to be probably way more than you're consuming right now. And so, again, very simple. What you could do, go to the grocery store, stock up on the following items: chicken breast, extra lean ground turkey, extra lean ground beef, even chicken thighs, shrimp, tuna, salmon, Greek yogurt, egg whites, whey protein powder, protein bars to a degree, Greek yogurt. Did I mention that? Maybe I didn't. Maybe I said it twice. And I want you to base your diet off of 3 main meals and then 1 snack. And you want to aim to have about at least 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal. And again, it doesn't matter if it's 3 meals, 4 meals, 5 meals, 6 meals. I generally recommend, what I generally consume is about 3 meals per day. A medium-sized meal mid-morning, a smaller meal in the early afternoon, which is pre-workout for me, and then a larger dinner, because that's kind of when I like to enjoy my food with my family. Don't overthink it, okay? It doesn't have to be precisely 140 to 160. Ideally, the literature has overwhelmingly pointed to 1 gram per pound of body weight to be the sort of maximum effective dose of protein. But to any of you guys watching this that are not, well studied or well trained, that's going to be like a lot. So go to the grocery store, hit these particular items, and aim to get in that range of 0.6 to 0.8. All you have to do is take your body weight, multiply it by those numbers, and you'll kind of get a rough estimate. And again, it doesn't have to be precise. Don't overthink it. What we're trying to do is just get the ball rolling with some, physical activity. The other thing I want you to do is aim to get 8 to 10,000 steps per day. It's really easy. Go pray a rosary outside, maybe even do it twice per day, or, park a little bit further away from places, take the stairs, etc. Just making an effort of getting out in nature, or even just like pacing around your house, like sometimes I do. I have a walking pad for this precise reason. And I think it's really important to begin to build these habits and build these things, because listen, you're already well studied, you're already well read, you practice your faith very well. And I think it's really important to display the glory of God in his physical creation as well. There is, supernatural virtue, living in a state of grace, partaking in the Eucharist, going to the sacrament of reconciliation. All these things are the most important things for man's soul. Like, you're not going to get to the gates of heaven and God's going to ask you what you've deadlifted. He doesn't care. Those things have no merit in his eyes. But I think it's really important that if you have this level of discipline in your spiritual life, then I think it's kind of missing the forest for the trees if this is not transferred to the physical life as well. So I'm going to make this challenge very, very basic. Okay, lift 2 to 3 times per week. Doesn't matter the type of program. Just getting in the habit of doing it. Eating a bit more protein. Again, 0.6 to 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. 8 to 10,000 steps per day. And then I want you to try and aim to track your macros. So get a food scale. There's a ton of guides online with regards to how to track macros. And this doesn't have to be perfect either. What we're trying to do here is build the natural virtues of temperance and fortitude that I think are very, very, I mean, you guys already know, if you're well studied, how important these cardinal virtues are in the spiritual life. And I think there's room for improvement, a room for growth in these particular areas, in the physical, in the sort of the natural area of virtue as well. That's all I want you to do. I feel so called to be speaking to Catholic men in such a way. But there's two demographics, okay? So I'm not just talking to you guys that are very pious, very well read, but maybe not as physically stout as you could be. And I think, really being the total human being, the total Catholic human being, involves, number one, of course, all the spiritual components, which are the most important for the salvation of our souls, but also the natural components, because there's no other faith that honors the total person, much like Catholicism. So I think if you guys aren't doing this and you're well studied in the faith, there's room for improvements. I can guarantee you, okay, because I've come from the other angle, being way too focused on the physical and the natural, and how it's actually transferred so well into the spiritual discipline. If you have spiritual discipline, marrying it to physical discipline, I think will make you a better Catholic. Super simple advice here. If you need any help with this, of course, just reach out to me. I'm happy to help. But I want you to do this for the next 30 days and see how you look and feel by the end of that 30 days, okay? And so the other demographic of people I'm talking to are guys like me that have maybe taken the physical too far, that there's been vanity, that there's been, narcissism. I've certainly been there, and it's still something that I'm, learning to combat by the grace of God, of course. So if you're a guy that is already is already physically stout, physically strong, you're lean, you've got some level of mastery in the gym. What I see in a lot of these guys is that in their spiritual lives, there's a lot of neglect. And there shouldn't be, because again, just like the pious guys, you've got the intangible skills of discipline, right? You've got already physical fortitude, you've got some temperance, you've got prudence, you've got, these things that are really good and they fare well in the natural. But if you're not marrying it to the supernatural, then again, God's not going to ask you how much you bench press when you reach the gates of heaven. What was your spiritual life like? What was your, how much time did you spend with God? How much time were you reading scripture? Not that he's counting the minutes, but I think it's really, really important that we do all of these things. So my challenge to you guys is to triple, quadruple your devotional life. If you're not going to confession twice per month, start doing that. If you're not praying a rosary daily, start doing that. If the first thing that you do in the morning is not getting up and praying immediately, start doing that. The first thing that I do is I drop to my knees and I pray. Our Father, Hail Mary, glory be. I pray my intentions for the day. And then before I work, I go and I read out of my devotional and I say another prayer. And the devotional that I use, if you guys want a recommendation, is the St. Augustine Day by Day devotional. It's a super cheap little book on Amazon, and it's been tremendous for me in my interior life and developing these spiritual habits. I pray a rosary per day with family, and obviously praying grace and saying grace before meals is super important. I go to confession twice monthly. I partake in, the Eucharist every Sunday. So my challenge to you is to look seriously at your spiritual life. Look seriously at your gym routine. And are you taking your gym routine more seriously than you're taking your spiritual routine? Because if you are, my man, you're missing the forest for the trees here too. Prayer first thing in the morning, rosary every single day, confession twice monthly, twice weekly. Can you imagine that? And then reading at least a chapter of scripture per day. Picking a saint or picking an aspect of, church history and spending some time and actually understanding your faith, some basic level apologetics. I think these things are absolute essentials. Using the Hallow app and doing some guided meditation, picking a novena from your favorite saint. I spent about, and this was a Lent sort of challenge for me, I'm spending about 35 to 45 minutes in prayer before I go to bed. And it's been one of the most sanctifying and beautiful things that I've ever done. because I looked at my spiritual life and I said, you know what? There's a lot of room for improvement here. I'm not going to pretend that I'm the most pious guy. I'm not going to pretend that I'm even the strongest guy in the gym or whatever. But I know I've taken the gym stuff way too far, and I haven't applied those same disciplines to the spiritual life. And there is transference there, guys, because what I've learned in the gym and losing all this weight and lifting all this weight is that it is transferable to the interior life. And I think I've been able to make a lot of progress really quickly because I've been able to apply that same discipline. So for to you fellow meathead Catholics out there, this is so important. Okay. Grace building on nature, to me, how I understand that is, okay, well, I've got this like physical foundation. Now, if I can marry those same disciplines to the spiritual life, those worlds meet, and I think it makes for a more total Catholic man, a total Catholic person. And you can eviscerate me in the comments if you want. This comes from just a spirit of really wanting to help my Catholic brethren and being, the greatest example of a living saint that we possibly can be. And I know, the saints weren't necessarily jacked, but they lived in times where they didn't have to create fake work, like the gym I have behind me. We're creating this sort of like fake work, and we're subjecting ourselves to these things because our lives aren't hard. But we have to meet ourselves where we're at in the society that we live in. So for you meathead dudes, look seriously and critically at your devotional lives. Take heed of these recommendations. Pray first thing in the morning. Pray your daily rosary, twice monthly confession. Try to find an extra day where you can go to daily mass if you're able to do that as well. And spend some time actually cultivating a relationship with God by reading scripture, doing some silent meditation, a novena to your favorite saint, the litany of humility. I think for a lot of us that spend a lot of time in the gym and care about, carving our physiques, I think it's really important to pray this litany as well, because sometimes we can get puffed up with pride. And the whole point here, guys, is to challenge these two demographics of men to be better Catholic men. Again, no other faith has honored the total person much like our Catholic faith. And if we are, physically weak, or we're overweight, or we're taking vanity way too far, we're not living and acting like total persons, if that makes sense. The number one thing is practice of our faith and living in relationship and communion with God, staying in a state of grace. Number one thing, number one, I'll always say that. I'm not trying to pretend deadlifting big weight is more important than this. But secondary to that is building these natural virtues as well. Again, the complete and total Catholic package, right? So again, if you disagree, I'd love to know. If you agree, I'd love to know. This is just, I don't feel a lot of people are kind of speaking to this particular issue that I think is present in the Catholic world, the Catholic faith at large. And I'm still a baby Catholic, so I'm not pretending to be, an authority on any of this stuff, because I'm not, because I'm still learning, and I've learned so much from, the more pious individuals. I remember being at an encyclical night a couple of months ago, and what these guys were talking about, and to the level, the degree in which they understood the faith and apologetics and theology, like they were running circles around me. I could not possibly keep up, which is great, like good. That's very humbling and humiliating for me, because I've got this level of mastery in this one area, but I'm a total noob in this other area, and I'm trying to learn. But I've taken those disciplines from this area that I am quite masterful in and applying it to the spiritual life. And I think I've been able to make a lot more expedient progress as a result. So that's it. That's the message. I want to help my Catholic brethren as much as I can, by bringing maybe my meathead takes to the table. So I hope this was helpful. Ultimately, guys, if you need help with this, especially the guys that are struggling in the physical, because I'm not a spiritual advisor, I'm not going to go and, I'm not comfortable with any of that. Of course, if you have questions, I'd be more than happy to ask. But more so, this is for that first group of people, the guys that are maybe physically weak or overweight. I do coaching, okay? And this is not a big coaching plug. I don't care who you work with. You could work with anybody or just find a program online. The point is just starting and doing something like this. But if you are seeking coaching, this is what I do. I'm also a Catholic fitness coach, so I'm going to leave the form below. So if you want some help with this, you want to work with somebody, let me know. All the guys that are in my group right now are absolutely crushing it. And I'm not saying this, I have absolute receipts to prove this as well. So if you need that, I'm going to leave the form below. We can be in touch. We can get on a call and see what that looks like. But otherwise, take heed of this challenge, gentlemen. I want you guys to do this for the next 30 days and really document this process and see how you feel and look and act and are at the end of these 30 days. And that's it. That's Meathead video done for the week. I'll see you guys in a week or two. Thank you so much for the support. Like, comment, subscribe, all this stuff. Share it with somebody that you think needs to hear it. And that's it. Glory to Jesus Christ.